The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, inspired by some of the quirkiest dogs you can ever imagine, and the owners who love them. This podcast is brought to you by the quirky couple themselves, Scott and Jess Williams. Their aim is to educate and entertain. Here's Scott and Jess.
Welcome, guys, and happy Wednesday. I feel like you clearing your throat is how we start every podcast now. It's the new way to do it. We have a very special guest with us here today. This is one of our favorite clients. She's been a client of ours for a little bit over a year now, and she owns a very unique breed, a Finnish Lapphund. But first, we're going to start with the quirky tip of the day. Now you can squeak. Okay, my quirky tip of the day is apple cider vinegar, people. I don't care if you feed kibble or if you feed raw, but apple cider vinegar is very good, very healthy for the dogs. A lot of good benefits. I specifically like the Bragg's, with the mother, if you will. But a little cap of this, if the dogs will tolerate it, very good for the animals. And I'm really kind of excited because when we had Michael DeBruzzo on, he called us unfiltered when he shared the podcast. So now I just feel like we're raw and unfiltered and just like apple cider vinegar. So if you do not currently give your dog apple cider vinegar at least once a week, give them a cap full. The benefits are endless. All right.
Have a shot for yourself, too.
Yes, it is. It is very good. A little bit hard, not super palatable. We like to do it with some water and some honey and even some lemon if you want. All right. So without further ado, we are welcoming on Magaly Sandoval. She has been a client of ours for a year exactly, I feel like.
About that.
Yeah. And she has a Finnish Lapphund, which they're the cutest little dogs. We trained two at the same time. We'll show you a picture in a little bit, named Maki. So tell us a bit about how Maki came to be and how you found this very unique breed. It was our first interaction with the breed, I feel like, right?
And how you found us, too.
Yeah, the whole thing. Just give us the lowdown.
We're going to go down there.
We're going to turn it over to Magaly. So tell us about Maki's intro and your intro to us and all that.
Yeah, share us.
All right, let's see. I always wanted to have a hiking dog, and simultaneously I always wanted to have the space to own a dog. I wanted to do a lot with a dog. How about that? And when COVID hit, I started working from home, and I'm still working from home, and I feel like I have now the time to dedicate myself to a dog how I want it to. Me and my boyfriend, we love winter hiking, and we wanted a dog that could handle hiking and could handle the cold weather without us having to worry whether it's safe for the dog to be outside in very, very cold weather. We're talking about minus 10.
Italian greyhounds aren't great for winter hiking, so this was a good move.
Not the Chihuahua. So I was scrolling like very late at night, maybe like at 3 a.m. looking into Spitz. And I never thought I would get a Spitz. If you don't know, that's like the little like tail on the back, like a Pomeranian, all those type of dogs, Huskies. I had almost discarded all of them because I felt like there were a lot of dogs. I've never owned a dog in my life, so I felt like I was not prepared for one of them. And then through the midnight scrolling, I got into Finnish Lapphund, and I kept reading about them, and I thought this might actually be the right dog for me. Like, it's a medium-sized dog. It seems from the temperament that I'm reading that it's the right dog for us. And lucky us, there was a breeder in the area for us. We contacted them. I think I've had harder, I think this was harder than my hardest job interview. Like, hello, I've never owned a dog. Can I have your dog?
And you got her. And the dogs, we had two at once. They actually were from the same breeder. Chrissy, will you put the photo up real quick so the people that haven't seen the thumbnail can see? They're the cutest little dogs. They kind of have like mini husky personalities, but they're a little more biddable than huskies, in my opinion. And they're just beautiful. And they really kind of have this very distinct look. They all pretty much look just like that, right?
And Maki is smiling at us, right?
Yeah, Maki has her tongue open. Very good, honey. Maki has her tongue open in the photo. That's
just for
down
the
in
people
Rockport.
watching.
Yeah. So you got Maki. How long was it from when you contacted the breeder to when you actually got a dog?
Oh, probably about a year.
Yeah, because that's not like an overnight thing, you guys. So everyone listening, typically, and this isn't always the case, but
most
if you're
people
going,
would go right to Pet Finder at that point.
They don't have a lot of the Finnish Lapphunds and Pet Finder. But if you do contact someone and they happen to have a litter on the ground right now or multiple litters on the ground right now, sometimes that will kind of be kismet and work. But for the most part, you do have to wait for what you want, and it's going to be 6 months to a year to even longer sometimes. So that's important to note. Okay, so you get this little puppy into your house. You and Chad are thrilled to have your winter hiking buddy. How did it go? What was the puppyhood like? What was the first, year of her life like, all of this?
I would even say that probably 3 months before she came home, we started hardcore looking into the type of training that we wanted to do with the dog. I started looking for materials, books. I was listening to audiobooks on dog training. And I felt like I was ready. The house had been puppy-proofed everywhere. She arrived home, and I started doing like this kibble thing, calling her name, because that's what the book had said. We had puppy gates. Well, normal people would call this baby gates. We had gates all over the house. We have cats too. I should have brought that up too. And
aggressive cats, I might add.
Rowdy cats. We'll
7 pounds of danger. But yeah, we have cats in the house, and their safety was very, very important for us. The way that you guys feel about Jimmy is the way that I feel about one of my cats, Seto. So sorry, Maki. But yeah, so we brought her home, and she was an odd dog, I would say. She wouldn't.
Didn't respond the way you thought she would, or
she wouldn't. Like most of the training that I had seen for dogs was very food oriented, and she wouldn't even eat her kibble. So like convincing her to eat her kibble was one of the first challenges. We're like, oh, you have to cook boiled meat on top of it, or we have to put cheese on top of it.
And this was like right from the get-go.
Right from the get-go.
Okay.
And doing all her basic obedience, which I thought I was capable of doing, and I feel like I did a semi-decent job. Like I kept upping the levels of treats that I was giving to this dog because she would not respond to food, and that was literally all I knew.
Yeah.
She also didn't have basically any toy drive. It didn't matter what I brought. I got BarkBox toys. I got the cheap ones. I got the cat toys. I got every single thing in the planet, and she didn't care. So it was hard to build that type of relationship with her.
She's kind of aloof.
Yes.
Yeah. But then she did have
Perfect
drive.
dog.
But then she did have drive to like bark at animals and stuff on the TV and like get into that kind of thing, right? Like they did pop up in maybe unopportune times.
Oh my God, the first time that we thought it was super cute, and in hindsight we didn't know better, she was probably like this 20 weeks old, like fluffy, angry potato, and she starts barking at Marley and me. And it was a trailer, and Chad and I go, look, it's so cute. she knows it's a dog.
And then that got less cute over time.
Over time, and they are bred for barking, so they have a very high pitch and annoying bark. And I wouldn't say that barking dogs are nice to listen to, but she's especially not nice to listen to.
Yeah.
So this started happening quite a bit. She started barking at silhouettes of elephants, the clocking of horses on TV. This started going everywhere. She started barking at dogs when we were walking on a leash. Her leash manners were terrible. It didn't matter if I was walking with filet mignon on my hands, she would just not respond when we walked on the street. And I think by the time it started getting extremely bad, she started having fence reactivity. So she started barking at, and we lived in a dead end. So there was like the one dog who walked on the street, and she would just lose her mind.
Yeah.
And by the time I came to you guys, she had started barking at my cats, and that's when I went like,
You're not going near my Jimmy.
Right, you're not going near my cat, and this was something we agreed on, so now we need urgent help.
And you guys had friends that had trained with us that were clients, right? There was a direct referral there?
Yes. When we didn't know better about socializing dogs, we used to do the let my dog say hi to every dog on the street. And through that, now when we know poor activity, we actually ended up meeting with Tom and Taylor, who had this lovely puppy about Maki's age. And we saw them go through the same teenager experience in very different ways.
Yeah.
So Maki was this out-of-control dog, whereas Rosie, their dog, was walking great on a leash and was very responsive and was going on off-leash walks. And what we were doing was not having the same effects that they were seeing, and they highly recommended you guys by the time that I think we were in the pit of despair.
But before you got to that point, you were doing agility, right? You were involved in agility?
We were involved in agility. We started going to classes with Maki to see if we could expose her to other dogs and teach her to settle around dogs. We did everything. We did scent work. We did a Frisbee seminar. Yeah. We did agility. We did private lessons. She went to a puppy school. She went to a daycare, which didn't last too long. 2 weeks later, she was even more rambunctious than ever.
Yeah.
So I think we spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on on her.
It is important to note. I mean, Magaly and Chad, they're above and beyond in their dog ownership. Scott has said multiple times throughout this past year, like, oh my God, I wish everybody was dog owners like Magaly and Chad are, because, you know, they were doing the pre-stuff. It's not like they just got this puppy. They were puppy-proofing the house. They were preparing. They were learning. They were stimulating the dog. They weren't just, you know, expecting the dog to be perfect. They were looking for resources. So you really did go above and beyond, and you were kind of hitting your head against the wall in a certain way, correct?
Yes, I felt like it was me. Like, I thought if this dog was with somebody else, that perhaps she would be better, that I was way in over my head when I decided to get a herding dog, and I should have just gotten a golden retriever like everybody else on the planet.
It was a tricky first dog for sure. So you had originally emailed us or called Scott, I feel like, after you heard a podcast episode, right?
Yes. Control creates calm, and that was around the time this couple we know had recommended your podcast. That's where we began, and we were very uncomfortable about using tools at the time, and we knew that Rosie was with a prong collar, and I in particular was extremely uncomfortable about that, but I saw she was loved, just as loved as Maki was, so that...
It's a lot of people's headspace. I'm glad you said it. No, it's important to know.
And we didn't start with the prong collar. I know you were uncomfortable with it, and we used that rough wear, which was like a martingale style collar, but had a little chain on it to make a little bit of noise. And I was able to make some progress with her with that collar, so we worked with that for a while.
Yes. And I listened to Control Creates Calm, and I think what dawned the heaviest on me was Scott bringing up a point that it shouldn't take more than 6 months to teach a dog to walk politely on a leash. And also, how are the dogs of the people that you're surrounding yourself with behaving? And every dog that was around me was just as reactive as Maki was. Like, I would park in the parking lot, and there were dogs, like, just jumping into the windows, barking everywhere, like, just getting into the agility ring. Really, most dogs were not able to watch the class because all of them were reactive. And it was just feeding on itself. And I thought, well, how am I going to see progress if no dog in here is behaving the way that I want her to look at? And if they're saying that 6 months is too much, and like what I'm hearing is that it's at least 4 years before I can get my dog to walk on a leash, and this is crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a third of the dog's life. Yeah,
half the dogs have cancer by then.
Stop it. No, but it's true. It is important to have a reasonable time frame within your expectations. And I will say, like, you guys did go above and beyond and looking at resources and trying things. And she's not joking. I mean, she cooked filet mignon for the freaking dog for treats. Like, she's not joking at all. So you guys had done, I feel like, an 8-pack, right? You did a pack of classes.
I believe it was. Yeah, we did 8 classes together.
And things got seemingly better for the most part, correct?
Yes, I think just the evaluation class with Scott, like we saw hope. Like the fact that like on that same class she did like CGC exercises, passing Jimmy and just behaving well. And I feel like during that class it was more me who needed help. Like, I'll be completely honest, but I went to bed crying that night. I was like, oh my God, what are we doing to this dog? And Chad is like, she was behaving perfect. Like, this is exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah, and that was the rough wear and just working a dog from the neck mostly. That was the concern. And was that more in your headspace or what you had read and learned previously? Like, where do you think this like ideal came from?
It was definitely what I had read and heard before.
Okay.
Like, it seemed like the entire media that surrounded me was telling me that I was breaking my relationship with my dog.
Yeah. You're
whereas
a dog abuser now. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And what I was seeing in real life was completely different. Like, my dog was listening to me for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, my dog, like, I was not stuffing cheese down her mouth to get anything out of her. She, over time, like, I would say by the end of the package, like, we could have stopped there. I just wanted more.
Yeah. So you guys were clients. You were doing one-on-one privates with Scott, and I hadn't even met you at that point. I didn't tag along for anything. And Scott would bring different dogs to your home, and you guys would work through some distractions and the reactivity of the animals and everything. That got a lot better for the most part, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We also met at some public parks. We got out in the world.
Yeah. That's
helps.
true. They sent us the sweetest Christmas card with Maki and Jimmy and everything on it, or it was a thank you card. It was very cute. It's still on our fridge.
But that was tough when we were out in the public space, and there was a lot of activity out there. And Maki, it was good because it was like, okay, now she was good in your yard and in that controlled environment, but getting her out in the world, she was stimulated for sure out there. We had to reel her back in a little bit.
Yeah, right. And these are strong little dogs. I mean, they look very cute, but they are, they have some chutzpah to them. They definitely have drive to them.
I will say that Magaly sent a video to us of one of these dogs herding a reindeer, and they have some character.
Yeah.
They don't care about a reindeer squaring up on them. They just bark, get your ass to the rest of the herd.
They're bred for a purpose, and they're not a joke here in this country either. So then we ended up doing board and train together, and that was, I don't know, a few months after the classes. You guys had planned it with a trip. I don't remember how it worked.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so you and Chad, they're big outdoors people. Chad's skydiving out of every plane in America. So you guys had gone and done like your own little trip during that time. And then we had Maki. I think we did a 2-week with her. So how was that experience for you? I know you dropped off at the house, but just to relay to people how that went, you can be honest again. If you cried that night too, you can tell us. We're all about open and honesty on the podcast.
No, I didn't. I think the cats loved it. She were like, finally.
A little break.
Well, you guys also have a podcast of what should a board and train should look like. So I think it solved a lot of my questions of what. And I know you're not doing that about just your board and train. You say what in general they should have, but it solved a lot of my questions of what should I expect out of this. Like, was she going to be in a crate all day? Was she going to wear an e-collar, which was some of the questions that we had. By that time, I was really sold on just trusting you guys through the whole process. So I really just enjoyed skiing a lot for 2 weeks.
Well, and the nice thing was that most clients do not come to our home with the dog to see where the dog is going to be staying. And you guys did want to come and see the house and whatnot. And we've had several people come. That people are welcome to come and see. But I think that helped maybe ease your mind a little bit too, seeing that the dog was going to be in our home with our dogs.
Yeah, and that's a topic that we brought up in the Board and Train podcast, and we bring up, if you are working with someone, obviously we don't have just local to New England listeners. If you are working with someone throughout the country and they will not allow you to at least come to their training space or come to where your dog is housed, I'm not saying that you're able to like go in the back room and, see all of that, but literally, like even when we had our facility, they could still look through the window to see where all the dogs were housed. That to me is a little bit of a red flag. It's not that people are bad dog owners that just trust us and say, yes, pick up and bring the dog home, but you should be welcome into the environment your dog will be staying in. I mean, your dog is a family member. She's similar to a child in a lot of ways for you guys. Like, this was a big deal. This is a big step.
And I think there were a couple moments that I was like, oh, is my dog alive? Like that anxiety. And roughly around the time I was like this close to text Scott, I would get a picture or a video. And I was like, oh, all right.
Still alive. Okay, check. Good. We're going. And that is something too. Open communication is a big deal. And if you guys do provide a service like this, I've said it before and I'll say it again, but we try to get ahead of the clients texting us. I mean, we're pretty quick to cut off people that want to text us 3 times a day and be like, what's going on now? And what's she doing now? And how's it going now? But every few days, we want to be the ones initiating communication and sending something and making sure that people are feeling good and giving an update and everything else. So we had her. It was great to have 2 at the same time because we were able to see some variations in temperament and stuff when they still had some similar genetics. And for the most part, I would say it was a little bit of a run-of-the-mill board and train. However, I saw her anxiety pop up with us more so than I would with a few other dogs. She
definitely had a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, and the way that would manifest itself is like one day I needed a top loader because, I don't know, some space issue or something that was going on. I don't remember why. And like literally I put a piece of chloroplast on top of a crate and then I put her crate on top of another dog and she like stood for like maybe 4 to 6 hours like, oh my God, like what am I doing? Like why am I this high above the ground? And I just saw these little things about her that were kind of bubbling up. So did you guys experience any anxiety with her before you brought her to us or during training or throughout her life? And what did that look like for you?
Absolutely. When you put that example, I was thinking that car rides for her, she would stand like the entire car ride and just pant and drool and drool and drool. Now she's in the crate, so I'm not really sure if she's standing up, but
the crate's not soaked with drool when she arrives to her destination.
Right, that's usually my proof. I'm like, oh, okay, it's not soaked, so it's probably fine.
Yeah, when I saw the crate you guys bought for the dog, I knew
they're all in.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't just get a very kennel for $100. You had like the best quality crate you could find in the back, and it was like they're committed.
Yeah,
they're committed.
Exactly. And it was part of them being so committed why I think the journey went as well as it did, and why I think you had every right to kind of look externally and look elsewhere for help because you wanted certain things. And one of the main things you wanted was to frickin' hike with your dog off leash. Like this, to me, is a pretty, basic level need for a dog owner. And this was your original intent to get a dog. So explain a little bit of that journey. Before we had gotten her for board and train, she really was not off leash at all, right?
We were doing everything but hiking. Like, I think the idea of taking her hiking would include waking up at 3 a.m. to see if we could find a trail. We would find like this complex, like ski joring, bike joring harnesses so that when she pulled us, she wouldn't kill one of us because she pulled.
Yeah.
But we were doing everything but hiking.
And you didn't want to run into other dogs. That's why you get up so early.
Right. And
Yeah.
we would wake up super early so we didn't run into other dogs. I still try to wake up kind of early because I don't trust other dogs, but now I trust her, which is different. Like at the time she was the offender. Like I was embarrassed. Like I remember there was one time she was on her way to be dropped off to you guys actually, when she saw a pack of, I would say like 7 off-leash, really big dogs. I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating, and in my head they look like all like Cane Corsos. Maybe they were all labs, but they look like Cane Corsos, all of them in my head. And she starts barking at all of them at the same time, and I'm like, oh my God.
This is not going to end well.
This is not going to end well. What are you thinking? Like, it was really embarrassing. And she kept doing this type of thing, so we just started, instead of making her world really large, which is when we wanted to just keep closing it in, we were trying to go specifically to just this events in which she would only go from the car to the event and not interact with anything. So she was very, very sheltered because we were so embarrassed about how she behaved.
Yeah. Okay. So then we do board and train. And after that, what was that like for you guys? And this is not a sale for our board and train program. This is really just Magaly's, experience. And really, her experience to me is really vast because we've been with her now for a full year. And we just did a follow-up the other day. I follow her on Instagram. Maki has her own Instagram page, like the whole thing. So I really just kind of wanted to impart her story because I think it's a lot of people's story. So you pick Maki up from board and train. What is that like for you and Chad? And the cats, really.
I think the cats were really sad. But yeah, we picked her up and, we got to adjust to the e-collar training. That was new for us. And honestly, I never realized how humane the whole experience was. I remember Scott comes and he actually tested the e-collar on
that's
me.
all he says is, open your hand. He doesn't even question. He's like, come on, open your hand. You're going to do this to your dog. You're going to do this to you.
And I was like, really? Like, this was what I was making a big deal about? Like, it seemed like at least I can control the stimuli that I'm giving, whereas when I'm frustrated with a leash, like, she's just going to get the level of frustration of my poor, like, leash handling skills at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, the more aroused she is, perhaps the worse I'm also behaving.
Good way to describe it.
Like at least she gets a constant input from, like, I don't have you guys' like leash skills. So that to me started being like, I can be constant in what I'm
Communicating. Yeah.
Some of the other things that we started seeing, like oh my God, her leash skills, like I wouldn't say that we were bad at this point. She was just supreme. I remember the first time I saw Jimmy, and like now I look at Maki and I feel like we're getting basically the same type of dog. Like,
she's better behaved than Jimmy.
Well, at least you're being honest.
I don't let too many people see him in action.
But the biggest thing for me was not just the leash skills, not just passing dogs, the heel. Like, I feel like there were a lot of things that we were building up to. There was something that I had zero hope of anybody ever being able to help us, and was the TV reactivity. Mm-hmm. And I think the first time that we can map you out all the TV shows that don't have dogs in the history of Earth.
Or they were like hiding and watching their dog shows somewhere else in the house.
Right. Like, we just hated like this emo commercial of this insurance company. Like,
pause.
But like we had mapped out like, if it's in a hospital, it's likely that there are no dogs in the hospital, right? So that's what we were watching all this time. And like, let's try to watch The Walking Dead, which starts with some horses.
Yeah.
And she saw the horse and she started panting, but she didn't bark.
Yeah.
We're like, well, that's surprising. And over time, we started just watching TV like normal people without like walking on eggshells. And to this day, like right now, she still demonstrates some discomfort, but it's like normal things. Like she will, if she's not in her bed, like she'll jump to the couch right next to me and do the whine. Yeah. Turn around and like, if I don't look at the TV, it's fine.
Yeah, she started like needs to remove the distraction for herself.
Did we send you the bill for having her debark? I can't remember.
Oh, she still barks, trust me.
Bark just like a seal then.
Yeah, and I think even like that first weekend or something, you're literally like texting us or messaging me and you're like, we watched Babe. Like you were literally like, you were just like, we just went all in. Like we're watching Babe and it's going well. And so that was really like your, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it moment. That's really what wowed you more than anything.
Right, more than anything. Her recall was probably my second in line of this dog has no hope on ever having a recall trained. I can tell you exactly how much it takes the tide to come up at Lynn. from a certain point to the other one, roughly an hour, because I made the mistake of letting her off leash before she had much training, and there were seagulls on the other side, and she decided to go chase seagulls for 40 minutes while I sat on the sand waiting for the tide to come up.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
It was
You had gone through a lot. And now, like, you guys are hiking off leash. Like, you have a pretty full life, I would say. It's pretty well-rounded, no?
It's just unbelievable. And the more that I trust that I have in her, that she's going to listen to me, the more confident that we will both work. And I feel like this is, like, it builds up on her. Like, if I confidently, like, I know she's going to heal, and I feel like she knows that I'm walking confident through this exercise, and we just passed by dogs that are, like, at the end of their leash, like, trying to eat her face, and she doesn't even blink an eye.
She's a perfect girl.
Yeah. So it's just unreal. And now I know that she's going to do fine. I feel like before I would have been like, oh my God, there's a dog coming, and, like, prepare all the, like, whatever, like, crazy treat I had of the day, like, whatever filet mignon I had cooked that day. And now we just walk, like, that's another thing we noticed after the board and train. We have a BarkBox subscription, and we went through more than one package of treats per receipt. Like, we had to go to the pet store and buy more packages, and now they actually last us more than the same next box. Like, I'm like,
How was the food drive? Is it better?
It is considerably better. Yeah. We changed her feeding schedule from twice a day to once a day, and we diminished a little bit the amount of food that she has. So she went from being a chunky little girl to an actually fit dog. The vet praised her weight.
Good.
And
she was a little heavy, but I do think sometimes that's secondary to the anxiety too, is that the dogs, I don't know if they're overstimulated or whatever else, but no matter what you're offering, they don't necessarily want to eat. But it also makes things very hard to reinforce. So I think that's an important point. So when you just went to the vet, was this a new vet? Because you guys have recently moved.
Yes,
was this a brand new vet?
Brand new vet.
Okay, and they were like impressed by her, right? Like I saw this post on Instagram. I was all proud.
They referred to the best dog that they've ever seen.
She was a good girl.
And when we were paying, doctors that were not our doctor actually started leaving their office. I was told that there's a really good dog.
People get excited now, and professionals especially, to see a well-behaved dog. So, and that gives you, I'm sure, a sense of pride and a sense of relief, I guess, in a sense, because now you have this 2-year-old dog who is the cutest breed, who everyone wants to see and meet and everything else. And you have, a decade to 15 years now of, like, whatever you want, basically. I feel like the sky's the limit, in a sense.
I feel like everything, like, it feels like the world is ours kind of thing. Like, before putting her leash on and going for a walk was like, oh my God, who's going to walk the dog? It's your turn. Like, it's my turn.
A lot of stress.
And now it's like, I can go and enjoy a walk with my dog.
Yeah, which is some basic stuff. Off-leash control, walking with the dog, being able to watch any show you want that isn't a doctor show. These are little things. And this is kind of how the dog starts to control things and you don't realize. So I want to go back to a little bit, just your journey and just your headspace and everything, because it's not necessarily that Scott was trying to brainwash you and be like, we have to up the equipment and everything else. So how did that look like for you? And what was kind of the turning point for you that made it like, okay, I've been trying this, purely positive stuff, and it's just, I'm hitting a wall. Like, I just kind of want you to walk through that a little bit more in detail, just because, especially now that you told us you cried. So you have more street cred about
a lot of my clients are crying, trust me.
I cried too. Maybe it's just Scott around women. Who knows? All right. Well, so tell me that.
Like, she had a martingale already. I mean, she's really fluffy, so it was just a safety thing. And Scott actually trained her with just the martingale that she had at a time. It was not even the little chain.
Okay, we didn't even go to the rough wear yet. It was just her
We got there eventually, but it was just her collar that she was wearing. And she did so good that I was like, okay, I feel like he knows what he's talking about. So I'll trust him with the next step. And as we continue seeing progress, I feel like it was just a matter of trust that this dog was getting to a healthier brain space that she had been her entire life. And to the point that I'll actually fast forward to today. And I told Chad the other day, wow, this dog naps a lot. She must be really lazy. Like, it must be age. And he said something that it just dawned on me. He says, no, she's just not anxious all the time anymore. So she can actually relax.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And that is part of it. And I think we miss this point. Sometimes we attribute this to drive or overexcitability or young dog or whatever else. But it is true. Like, dogs just being able to, hang out or being able to sleep. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, I had a few years, even when we were podcasting, I was an insomniac like crazy. If you're running pretty high with your anxiety, you're not sleeping as much, and you're overthinking, and in Maki's case, you're panting. So this is so true and so to the point that yes, like she can rest. She can have, time at home where she's just chilling out. And it's not like she's always just on a place, like she's choosing on her own accord to be sprawled out on the couch or on the bed and just resting. So I think that's beautiful. And I appreciate you speaking to that point. And I do think trust in the trainer is a huge thing, but also Magaly was looking at her dog and saying like, okay, is this for the better or for the worse for my dog? And is her life improving? Is her world expanding? Is it getting more closed off? And I mean, I'm super proud of you guys. You came to one of my seminars a few months ago. You were standout. She was super well behaved. You guys still are great dog owners. She does a ton of trick training. They do a ton of, enrichment hikes. You do everything you can for this dog. You give her the best life possible. But she's also, I feel like, living up to her end of the deal a little more than she
absolutely.
was.
And my cat approved of her 2 days ago.
Good.
He napped next to her, which was unbelievable. And because she enjoys napping now, she was like, oh, this is fine. And they just chilled.
Good. Good.
You know what I really enjoy about you and Chad is that you're outdoor people. You want to go hiking. Like a lot of people, they get a dog and they think, oh, I'm going to get a dog so that I can go hiking. You guys like to be outdoors and do outdoor stuff, and you wanted the dog to be a part of that, because I can remember getting some pictures from you guys after the board and train. You were up in Vermont. You got the dog off leash. It's like the sun is just coming up. It's like 5 a.m. in the snow. They're out there like, you can tell.
That's them.
Yeah, you guys had gotten up at like 4:30 in the morning, put all your gear on, went to a place, started hiking up the side of a mountain or something with your dog, and you think that's fun.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people, that's not their idea of fun, but Jess and I like to get out and do a lot of stuff like that with our dogs too. So it was really cool that you could go do what you like to do, have the dog doing what you originally were envisioning for your dog, and you guys are able to, and you have the dog like sitting on a rock somewhere like 20 yards from you, and it's just cool to see,
Yeah. Scott likes the Instagram pictures. He's really leaned into Maki's Instagram page.
I like to see people enjoying their dogs.
Yeah,
and getting out
true.
and doing stuff.
It's true. And you guys are exceptional dog owners. Again, I said it earlier, but I cannot tell you how many times we've said like, oh, if everybody was just like Magaly and Chad, because you really do want to invite the dog in, and you really do want the dog to be a part of the family and just live life with your freaking dog. The dog is not a second thought, or the dog is not a hassle. And now you're even considering maybe adding another canine member to the family, which is a huge thing for you guys.
Insane, definitely.
Yeah. What was the duck-tolling retriever?
That's what she's considering. But it's awesome. It's such an interesting journey that, like, this dog who was really reactive, who you felt like was, oh my gosh, it's going to be too much dog. Now you're considering maybe even getting a second dog, which is awesome.
It'd be cool. Tell Chad that he should take her skydiving. Get the harness, have her right here. I do that in the
elevator crate is enough.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your tidbits on this. I just think it's really important for people to, one, be able to trust who they're working with. Again, we're going on like a year relationship here with them, and it's not going anywhere. We keep in touch all the time.
Way longer than I'm comfortable with.
This is a long-term relationship for Scott. And, also like the communication is open. Like I have no problem being like, hey, I saw that she went to a groomer. How did it go? And you have no issue, texting us about questions and everything else. So I think trust is a huge thing. And then just about really what is the realistic expectation for what you want for this dog, and how long is that going to take to get there? And I do agree that when we're talking, 2 to 4 years for something like loose leash walking, that may be too long for a lot of people. So be sure to look outside, your network of who you're currently working with. Look for people that you trust, look for referrals, everything else, and maybe step outside your comfort zone. You certainly did, and I feel like it worked in your favor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much. Anything we missed, honey?
No, I'm glad that you could take some time and do the podcast.
Yeah, and we're not recommending that everyone get a Finnish Lapphund, even though they're the cutest dogs ever. But it really is a testament to Magaly being a first-time dog owner, having this breed that is not super easy, and her and Chad working through stuff. And now, like you said, the world is your oyster. You can do anything you want. You can even go to the beach during seagull hour. It's crazy.
We can, yes. Where there's a will, there's a way.
The sky's the limit. I'm doing that one for Chad. It's a little bit of a pun. All right. Thanks so much for joining us this week, you guys. If you guys are curious about working with Scott and I personally, for some reason, our service area goes from Portland, Maine to Boston, Massachusetts to Manchester, New Hampshire. I feel like when you guys watch, it's the other way. Maybe I'll try to change it. And in the meantime, thank you so much for Magaly for coming on. And we love Maki dearly. And you guys keep it quirky. Take care, guys.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.